Hello everyone, and welcome to the Sports and Recreation Center on the campus of the College of Staten Island, home of the Dolphins, and where most recently the college made a landmark decision to transition their NCAA program from NCAA Division III to NCAA Division II. It's a move that's come with a host of excitement, but also a lot of questions. What exactly is NCAA Division II? Why the move now at the College of Staten Island? And what does this reclassification process mean for current and future CSI administrators, coaches, and of course student athletes? Hello everyone, I'm David Pizzuto, Associate Director of Athletics and Sports Information Director at the College of Staten Island. And in this special presentation, we'll answer some of those questions. We'll talk to CSI President Dr. William J. Fritz, CSI Athletic Director Charles Gomes, and several other insiders here at the Sports and Recreation Center to find out more about this reclassification process. So sit back, relax, and join us as we take a look at this special presentation, CSI's Move to Division II. So to start our Move to Division II special, we're here at the College of Staten Island's Great Lawn, where commencement is held every year at CSI, and where right behind me in Building 1A sits the office of President William J. Fritz. President Fritz is going to meet with us now to talk a little bit more about this monumental move in CSI athletics history, the Move to Division II. So let's go join him. So welcome back. We're here with Dr. William J. Fritz of the College of Staten Island here in our Move to Division II special. Dr. Fritz, first and foremost, thank you for meeting with us, talking a little bit about this great venture that CSI is going to. And I guess we'll start, you know, there's so much made about the exploratory process in getting into the NCAA Division II. But tell me a little bit about the process before that. Was there a seminal moment that occurred that, you know, triggered the discussion about possibly entering Division II?
Well, more than entering Division II, because I think the actual specifics of Division II have been relatively recently. But since I've been president, I've had a vision of increasing the presence of athletic opportunities for our student athletes on campus. We know that student athletes are more engaged with the campus, they graduate faster, they have better GPAs, they take tougher measures, and so having a vibrant sports program has always been important to me. Probably the triggering factor came soon after I became president, and we had some issues that we had to deal with compliance with the NCAA, and really starting at the basics of building a strong athletic program. I think that included hiring Charles Gomes, who's just an outstanding athletic director with some of the top credentials in the country, from where he has his degree from Springfield College and experience with the NCAA. We brought in a group of new coaches. We started intentionally branding and marketing our athletic. As incredible as it sounds, 7 years ago, we didn't have a Dolphin mascot. Mm-hmm. And the campus had never seen a Dolphin mascot, and just having Danny the Dolphin come to events, and now 7 years later, my students see him as a main symbol of the campus. If you look at the rec center today, it's nothing like it was 7 years ago. There was no consistent colors, no consistent signage, and the flags and things around. You could hardly tell that we were all the same institution. The branding of the gym floor with the new gym floor, and of course we've done the same thing with the branding of the soccer fields and the ball fields, and now with the swimming pool. I could go on and on. Sure. There's been so many things, but all of that was to position us to take advantage of an opportunity to take athletics to the next level, whatever that next level happened to be. We really want to have more competition available to our students.
So in essence, the exploration process has kind of been always ongoing since since you've been president, and specifically for Division II, you know, the exploratory process obviously examines whether the college is ready to make that move, but it also examines whether Division II fits with the college and the planning and the mission moving forward. What have you kind of discovered in this process that makes Division II a good fit for our campus?
Yeah, what's interesting, and of course I've had the opportunity for the last 5 years to serve on the President's Council for Division III for the NCAA, and so I'm one of about 18 presidents across the country that the President's Council is the top governance council for Division III. So I really get to seeing how both small privates and large public institutions across the country use their athletic programs to help enhance the student experience. I also have experience. I served for many years at a D1 Research 1 institution that happened to be Division I, and so I also have a pretty good understanding of how Division I uses their programs. What I like about Division II is it seems to me the best of both worlds. So the D3 model is committed entirely to, you know, students first, scholars first, and then the athletic program is something that enhances the student life ability. D2 and D3 share that almost none of the student athletes who are participating in D2 or D3 sports are planning to ever make a career of professional athletics. Their careers are within their majors, as it should be. D1, on the other hand, is, at least in the top D1 schools, you know, there's so much money involved, and there's sort of a focus that students are really aiming at something, you know, maybe going on to professional and competing, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it's a different, it attracts a different level of person. What I like about D2 compared to D3 is D2 and D3 share very similar characteristics in terms of the things that I just meant, that students graduate faster, they earn more credits, they're more engaged, they major in tougher majors. So it's kind of hard to tell the D2 from the D3 students apart academically. It's not the stereotype that you think of in college sports of you know, students focusing their whole lives on athletics and their academic performance is mediocre at best. That is not the vast majority of students in D2 and D3. But as an access institution, we're trying to help find ways for students to be able to afford to attend college. And of course, the rules of D3 don't allow you to give scholarships, so we can't give any incentive for a student to come here based on their athletic ability. It seems to me that for an institution like ours, where we can use our athletic program to strategically invest in solving a campus issue for us. So what are some of the campus issues that we're dealing with? One is we have a strategic plan that talks about us being a destination campus, about student scholarship, about trying to bring in more students from out of the New York area, from upstate New York, from out of state, especially international students, to come here to help enrich the student experience for all of our students. We're trying to focus on getting many of those students living in our residence halls in Dolphin Cove. And there are a lot of students that want to go, especially to New York City, and compete at the D2 level rather than the D3 level. And so I think some very modest investments in student scholarship. The money is going to go not to doing anything different to our athletic programs than we would do differently. The money that we will have to spend at D2 is entirely focused on spending money on students and increasing the students that we have. At the D2 level, students, well, first off, they have to have a 2.2 GPA coming out of high school, but they also have to earn and successfully complete and earn 30 credits a year. So any of those students would be automatically eligible for the Excelsior Scholarship if they're family income warranted them being eligible. For that, we've struggled with having our students actually meet that continuing 30 credits a year. So our student, it's kind of a double incentive for a student athlete to choose to want to come here, because we can really take advantage of that. The East Coast Conference that we're exploring joining has a graduation rate greater than 74-year graduation rate, greater than 75%. Wow. My vision is if we have our student athletes graduating at that rate, it's going to make the whole college look good, and will be a model and inspiration to all of our students.
So you talked very briefly, and you just introduced the ECC, the East Coast Conference. Can you tell us a little bit about how that relationship has grown, and some of the folks affiliated with the ECC that are excited about CSI's potential entry?
Well, the specific opportunity came to us at the request of the president of Queens College. And so Queens College has historically been the one CUNY campus that has competed since 1989, I think, at the D2 level, where the rest of the CUNY campuses have been at D3. But the president of Queens College brought to my attention that there was a vacancy in the East Coast Conference, and urged that I explore whether that would be the right fit for us for what we were trying to accomplish. A vision I have is I think it looks good for two CUNY campuses to be in a Division II conference. I would like to start a Queens College, College of Staten Island rivalry within that conference. I think that's something that would generate a lot of excitement among our student bodies, a rivalry from the outer boroughs, so to speak. The Queens campus shares many of the challenges we have on Staten Island, which sometimes is feeling like we're far away from some of the areas of the city, and creating that rivalry of the outer boroughs would help the East Coast Conference. It would help us. It would help CUNY.
And you spoke a lot about the strategic plan at the college, something that you talked about at length at convocation, and you mentioned athletics a few times there as well. How do you envision athletics kind of being an invigorator to the strategic plan, and sort of nurturing it along, and being almost like a placeholder for what the strategic plan represents?
Well, one is borough stewardship, and I think sports are very important on Staten Island. We have a lot of student athletes that are coming out of the high schools on Staten Island. The Staten Island Advance, writes stories us all the time. This is going to be big news on Staten Island. The people that I've already spoken to it, from our elected officials to business and community leaders, are just so excited about what they see us going to D2. And I think it's because it creates an excitement of play. And part of my vision, part of the excitement can be, because I think when you're in a conference with all of the other member schools, people don't pay as much attention to it as if you have schools. And again, the East Coast Conference has schools ranging from Washington, D.C. to Massachusetts to upstate New York. And so if we start competing against schools both here in the New York metro area, but also outside of the New York metro area, it gets our name out there. It creates excitement, and then of course if we had some exhibition games between us and Queens College, there's no reason within the CUNY that the top D3 school in the CUNY Act couldn't have exhibition play against, whether it be whoever has the highest standing between us and Queens. And I think it suddenly generates just a lot more. That's to me part of his borough stewardship. We're really filling a niche of not only getting our name out there, but getting Staten Island's name out. So I think in that way it fits into the strategic plan very nicely. We also talk about scholarship-based education, and I would not want to join a conference or an athletic division that didn't have the academic abilities of the students first and foremost. And I think if you read the Division II on the NCAA's webpage, it talks about the importance of students' well-being, their academic well-being, and the fact that their academic studies are first, and the athletic competition is something to make college life more exciting to them. And D2 is clearly going to fill that, and I think specifically the East Coast Conference has language in their charter that speaks to the importance of students' academic abilities coming first. I was very impressed when I met at the most recent NCAA meeting. We were interviewed by all of the presidents in the East Coast Conference talking about whether or not there was this match and fit that you've talked about, and they talked about how important the athletic schedule was to ensure that it really minimized the amount of time that students had to be away from classes and to focus on schedules, and that's really important to me because, again, this is not Division I where the athletic performance is top. This is Division II where we feel that students' academic studies is the most important thing, and then we're trying to fit the opportunities around that.
So Dr. Fritz, one of the things you mentioned was obviously scholarship, and that's what a lot of people think when they think about the changeover from Division III to Division II. And obviously this impending move does bring up the tough questions centered around finances and quite frankly, how does CSI offset the costs associated with the move, whether it be scholarships, increased staffing, enhanced recruiting, extensive team travel, generating operating expenses. How do you answer the question people will have on how a move like this gets funded?
Well, there's very different ways to answer the question, but I'll go back to what I said right at the beginning. I think that this is a way to strategically use the income-producing abilities of our athletic program to deal with a campus issue. And the campus issue is how do we recruit and retain better quality students? Right. How do we recruit students from out of state? How do we get more international students excited about coming here? And I think that we can, the way that we're envisioning this is it's going to be entirely self-funded out of athletic revenues and, philanthropy and private fundraising from people that believe in this particular vision. So I don't see it at all touching the operational budget of the college. Now, how are we going to do that? First off, it's not going to cost any more money to keep the fields up, and we have athletic fields, we have the gym and the pool and our facilities, and we have to maintain those facilities whether we're Division II or Division III. Sure. And so the core level of staffing is going to be what it's always been. How do we provide for student scholarships? Well, if you go back when I talked to the campus community, it's almost a year ago now, about some of the budget challenges that we're facing, and I said that there were 3 or 4 things that we needed to do to turn around our budget picture from the operational side. And one of the things that we need to do is to increase our enrollment. I think this is one way that we can increase our enrollment. Charles has put together some numbers, and I think it's going to be very easy. For example, if by the year we were off, fully through the process by fall of 2022, which is only 3 years from now, we had even 50 students from out of state, more than we would have without the athletic program. Just the tuition differential is going to be more than $600,000 available to the campus. Now, that's not the money we're going to use to pay for the coaches and to do the operations with. That's extra revenue that's going to be coming in to help the campus. So increasing enrollment, we talked about. Increasing out-of-state and international enrollment is part of that because of the tuition differential. The other thing that I spoke to about was the need to make strategic investments. Even though we don't have a lot of money, we need to invest in things that are going to make money. And so this, to me, is a strategic investment, that investing in those scholarship, investing in getting good students to come here is going to pay off for the campus in many, many times what it quote-unquote costs us to be able to do that. The other way that I could talk about, Queens College had a consultant just about 3 years ago that really looked at the cost of coming back to Division III or staying at Division II, And they shared that, it was about a 300-page report that looked at what all of the Division III campuses around New York, including all of the CUNY campuses, were spending on their athletic programs, what the revenue potential was. They looked at the Division II expenditures. And their advice to Queens was it would cost more money to come back to Division III than to stay at Division II. The expenses are a little higher at Division II, but the revenue is also much greater. Just for example, if we're successful in joining the East Coast Conference, we anticipate, hosting some of the pay. We're kind of geographically right in the middle of that conference, and our campus would be very attractive to host some of the playoffs, and that's going to generate revenue for us in a way that we didn't have access to.
Right.
And it will be using that additional revenue to fund the scholarships. We'll probably be at the minimum level for what we can do compared to some of our sister campuses within the conference. We'll probably be at the level of what Queens College is doing. At the end of the day, the conference doesn't care how much money you spend. They care about whether you're competitive in the sports program. So we certainly wanted to put enough incentives out there that students will be attracted to come here. And many students take great pride in saying, well, I went to school on an athletic scholarship.
Sure.
And I think that's a market that we've never tapped into. Again, I mentioned my service for the NCAA on national meetings, and my fellow presidents, both at small private colleges and also large publics like us, will tell me that if they have enrollment challenges, the very first thing they do is add a new sport or join a different conference or do something to use their athletic program to help with the recruitment. And I don't think that we've ever done that. I'm not sure that too many campuses in CUNY have thought that way, and I think the whole city, University of New York, is missing an opportunity to make us attractive to a whole different group of students out there, students who are very well academically qualified.
So you made mention of the provisional period of time that it would take if accepted. CSI would be a provisional member for 3 years before becoming a full member. What do you hope to see over the course of the next 3 years, should we be accepted, to not only see CSI through the provisional period, but to also see the institution become a truly dynamic and competitive program within Division II?
Right, so I'm thinking of various measures, and interestingly enough, the number of championships we win is less important to me than some of these other majors. What I want is to have very specific targets of how many additional out-of-state and how many international students that we see. So if we start to see those numbers start going up, that will be a measure of success. The number of stories that we have in the Staten Island Advance about our programs will be a measure of success. Attendance at home games. One of the reasons for having a strong athletic program is so students who living in the residence halls who aren't student athletes have something to do.
Sure.
And I know over the last 4 or 5 years, we've, I remember the days 8 or 9 years ago, even a playoff game in the men's basketball in the final season, if you saw more than a dozen people in the, you were lucky. Now I've been to a number of games that have over 1,000 in attendance, and it just brings a level of excitement and college pride and institutional affiliation that we haven't seen. I mean, the other thing to do is that our student athletes are very, very loyal individuals. One of our top donors is a former student athlete. Our students who have played through us clear back to the early days in the going back to 1956 at Staten Island Community College. Danny the Dolphin is our oldest probably mascot or image that we have as a campus. That's why it was astounding to me that we didn't have we didn't have a dolphin costume to actually be seen at the games.
Sure. So President Fritz, you of all people know how important a staff is to execute positive results at an institution as large as ours. This move to Division II is larger than just athletics, obviously. It pulls in a lot of different people from different areas together. How confident do you have to be as a president of your staff during a move like this, and how encouraged are you by the process so far?
Sure. Well, first off, you have to be very competent of your staff, because they're the ones who, I'm not the one out there recruiting the students and, coaching them on how to play to be competitive. So I think it's critical that I trust the staff. And I think that we have, in the last 5 years, assembled a team. Probably like any part of the campus, we could always have more staffing. But I think we have a staff that's just very dedicated to the safety and well-being and of our students that are going to be able to, recruit the right students and create that right student atmosphere. Like I say, if I just look at increasing attendance, if I look at the branding and the marketing and just the excitement when I walk into the gym now is just so different. And it's the current staff there that have made that happen.
Terrific.
And so part of this is my trust. I don't think that this is a move that we could have made 5 years ago. I just don't think we were ready yet. I think it isn't that we've been preparing all this time to go to Division II, but all of the things that we did made it possible to take advantage of this opportunity when it came along.
Terrific. Very good. So it's clear to many since you've been president at CSI how invested you personally have been in athletics. Not just your work on the President's Council and your work with the NCAA, but even on the sideline at games. Between you, your wife, fellow cabinet members, inviting athletes to this room to celebrate championships, recognizing them at award ceremonies, including them in the college's vision, and so on. Can you talk about how important sports has been for you in the backdrop of your professional career and how tied in you feel to athletics on campus?
Well, I think it's a major mechanism for leading to student success and creating that student environment. I mean, there are many other programs. I'm just as excited about our undergraduate conference on research, scholarship, and performance, and other clubs and organizations that do the same thing. But I think athletics is something that most universities around the country and our society really use as a cornerstone for generating that excitement among their current student body and then among our alumni. It's also looking at the leadership opportunities. I mean, I look at our current head coach for men's basketball, and I haven't been at the College of Staten Island all that long, but I remember when he was a student player.
Yeah, sure.
And he was a student player that I used to come to the games just to see him play. And now to see him coming back, just not only as a coach, but as our head coach, is just, just to me, just really illustrates the leadership potential of a really good sports program, and see how in turn he is, mentoring, a whole new generation of
student athletes. So Dr. Fritz, if accepted, this will be a landmark moment in the history of our institution, and one that will forever be associated with your leadership and your administration. How excited are you personally at the concept of leading CSI through this seminal moment in our athletics history?
Well, I'm very excited about it, but the reason I'm excited about it is what I've just been talking about, because it's a way to achieve many of the things in our strategic plan. Destination Campus says that you've got to have programs that make students want to be here. We need a bookstore that makes students want to be here. We need a cafeteria that makes students want to be here. We need roads and sidewalks and infrastructure, but we need an athletic program, because there are students who want to come to play athletics, but there's other students who like to go to school where there's that school spirit and a team to follow. It's really a mechanism to achieve those pieces of our strategic plan. When I come and see the dedication and the hard work that our students are putting into performing on the field, the leadership opportunities of the experience that the students are getting, and then to see some of those same students presenting at the undergraduate research conference that I just mentioned. When I go to the graduation ceremony for Macaulay Honors Project, when we pick our valedictorian and salutatorians, they often come from the ranks of our student athletes, and I think that's just so powerful.
Yeah. I know we've covered a lot, but for the folks who are watching this video who are looking to learn a little bit more about this move, and kind of just to wrap up, what do you want people to know out there who might not know a lot about what a move like this entails? What thoughts do you want to leave them with as CSI now takes that next step and is waiting for NCAA decisions and visits to determine whether they're a fit?
Well, many different ways I could answer that question, but one thing that it's going to mean is more opportunity to go on to postseason play. And part of student experience is not just competing, within your division, but getting out there and competing against players that are better than you are, and because you can only move up if you're being constantly challenged, and playing other schools, getting to interact with within the new East Coast Conference, our students will have way more opportunities than they do now to meet schools from fellow students from small private colleges, from large publics. The East Coast Conference has a diversity of schools from small private to large public, and getting to interact with those, and then if they have the opportunity to go on to postseason play and compete with teams from other parts of the country, to me that just really broadens the excitement for the students. And so I would hope people would really appreciate this is really about the students and the student experience. And the thing that I have to just keep saying over and over and over again, because I'm trying to break some of the national stereotypes, the vast majority of NCAA athletes in this country are top students. Sometimes we hear about the scandals at some of the big D1 schools, and it colors people's impression of what a scholar athlete is. But all of our students are what we like to think of them as scholar athletes. They're scholars first, they're athletes second, and as I mentioned before, they're equally adept at the undergraduate, navigating the undergraduate research conference as they are at navigating the swimming pool or the tennis courts.
Excellent. So this has been really informative, Dr. Fritz. I want to thank you again for taking the time. I know I speak for everyone in athletics, from administrators, coaches, student athletes, parents, friends, family, and fans, of just how exciting this venture is, and we're lucky to really be a part of it. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you for taking the time to meet with us today and talk a little bit about it.
Happy to talk about it at any time.
All right. Terrific. Dr. William J. Fritz, the president of the College of Staten Island, talking with us about the move to Division II, a very exciting venture here at the College of Staten Island. Thank you again, Dr. Fritz.
Great.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our conversation with President Fritz, and now our travels take us back inside to right here at the Sports and Recreation Center, where perhaps no one in this building is working harder than Athletic Director Charles Gomes, who's leading his entire staff through this transition from NCAA Division III to NCAA Division II. We're going to chat now with CSI Athletic Director Charles Gomes, so let's have a seat. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Sports and Recreation Center here. Sitting with CSI Director of Athletics Charles Gomes. Perhaps no one more vested in this move to Division II than Charles and his staff. And Charles, I guess we'll start first with, over the last several weeks and months, CSI has explored the idea of moving from Division III to Division II. Being a very large part of that exploration process, what have you learned that makes CSI the ideal fit to enter Division II at this time?
You know what? Thanks for sitting down with me, Dave. A lot of stuff. I think in the last couple of months we've learned a lot about the Division II process, about the typical size and type of schools that are in Division II, and I think it's kind of made us learn that we're not necessarily an ideal fit for Division III. The large number of schools in Division III, I think it's about 92% are small private colleges. Obviously, as a large public institution, we're very different from that, and the fit in Division II is more a 50-50 split between publics and private. So from that perspective, we kind of feel that it's a really good match for us. In addition to some other things, I think the nature of the Division II philosophy really aligns well with the College of Staten Island's philosophy. When you look at things like the institution's strategic plan for the entire campus, it fits well. The concept of engaging in your community, the partial scholarship model, I think are all really good fits for the College of Staten Island.
Great. So the only way to gain potential entry from Division III to Division II is to have an invitation from a conference.
Yes.
And CSI's gotten that invitation from the East Coast Conference, better known as the ECC. What have you learned about the ECC? Maybe it's, some of the folks that are already a part of there that give you a little bit more familiarity with the conference that you'll be entering into.
Well, obviously we get we get into that conference, which hopefully, pending our application process, we're able to do. We walk in and we have a partner school from the CUNY system, Queens College, who's already in the conference. Most of the schools are within this geographic region, which I think is a nice fit for us as well. Beyond that, the sport sponsorship that is offered by most of the schools in the ECC is really an ideal match. Sports that have become our hallmarks, like men's, women's soccer, men's, women's basketball, baseball, softball, those have are all sponsored in the ECC, where they have championships. So it's a really good fit for us in that regard as well.
Okay. So now when most people think about a move from Division III to Division II, the first word that they think of is scholarships. So obviously that's a big part of this transition and this move. But what are some of the other differences that people maybe might not see at face value, but are some inherent differences between Division III athletics and Division II athletics?
So it's funny, because I think when we first made the announcement to our coaches and our staff that this was something we were exploring, every coach says, wow, scholarships, I get to give scholarships, and that's something they should be excited about. But even when you start to look beyond that and dig a little bit deeper, the academic standards are something that are really critical for us and for our institution even more so. Having to deal with what was formerly known as the NCAA Clearinghouse, now called the Eligibility Center. So students are coming in more academically prepared for college, would walk right into our baccalaureate program, and I think that means a lot to our institution. As a school looks to change the profile of what it's been and look forward and what we could become, I think Division II is a major part of that. So when you look at the initial academic entry standards and then continuing eligibility, those things are all really critical and kind of along the same page with the academic standards. It's the academic support we want to try to provide those student athletes going forward. So things like adding staff to help with academic advising, opening up study halls that are mandated for athletes with certain GPA requirements. That's the part I think that on a deeper dive, it's not just scholarships, it's higher academic standards, it's really taking a look at our staffing and where do we need to add full-time positions, and budget is always a question for us with regard to staffing, transportation, officials, all the fun things that we have to pay for in athletics. So there's a lot. It's not just a scholarship program, it's really changing our entire athletic department.
Great. But getting back a little bit to scholarships, circling back, what do you tell current coaches and student athletes? Obviously, the NCAA doesn't expect the college, even as a provisional school, to start awarding scholarships right away. That would happen in year 2 of provisional. But what's the company line right now as far as current student athletes who may be involved with the program? What are some of the things that they're being told and some of the coaches being told about if and when the time comes, how that process happens?
Yeah. So it's a little difficult, right? Because right now we've received an invitation from the ECC, we've applied to the NCAA, but we don't know whether or not we're in. So that leaves us in somewhat of a gray area as we head into the spring and look forward to the summer, where we would ultimately get a decision from the NCAA at some point. We're hoping in mid-July, and then it's okay, what's our plan going forward? So as you mentioned, our first time we would issue scholarships would be for the students who are entering the fall 20 class, that incoming class, and that's going to be our approach. There's a minimum amount that the NCAA requires you to contribute to scholarships by year 1, and we've had an internal plan to grow that budget over the first 3 years of our provisional period, and then hopefully we're active in year 4 and we're competing for championships, and at that point we're hoping to fully fund our scholarships just like any other Division II institution would.
Great. So you mentioned almost that gray area, and the timing of this is tricky because you're a Division III program right now, and you will be until the close of July. But that kind of leaves this kind of 5-month window that's kind of precarious, where the college doesn't really know what's happening. What's actually going on during those 4 or 5 months that people might not see here at face value?
So we're going forward planning as though we're getting in. We're going to take a very positive approach to this, but that means we've got to really nail down all the pieces of this application. We have a site visit scheduled for later this spring. The NCAA hires a consultant to come in and review all of our practices to see everything that we put down in our application, is that real? And what are we continuing to do to grow, to educate our staff, to prepare for the transition? A lot of compliance practices will need to change. So our spring is doing a lot of that type of work. In addition to our own staff, it's really going out with the rest of the college's staff, whether it's enrollment, academic advising, financial aid, bursar, international office. There's a lot of other departments on our campus that we need to all be on the same page, because this change is going to impact a lot of different offices on our campus. And if we do this just as athletics, an athletics-only initiative, it's never going to be successful. So for us, it's really important to help educate all the departments on our campus and look at things in this new light of Division II. And it's very different. Something as simple as our admissions practices are expected to be a 180 difference compared to where we were as a Division III institution and where we now would be as Division II. So there's a lot of education that's going to need to happen this spring, a lot of work. The application was a lot of work, but now that's behind us, we can move forward with educating all of our staff as well as the rest of the campus community.
There's obviously no question that a move like this demands a lot of extra resources, scholarship money, staffing needs, things like salary, recruiting budgets, expanding the competitive network, travel, etc. So some hard decisions have to be made, and CSI has to make some tough choices regarding sports sponsorship.
Correct.
So can you talk a little bit about the potential of possibly having to carry less sports or having to take a deeper look at what CSI is offering? Because if they did come into the ECC sponsoring 17 sports, they'd probably be at the highest level than most other institutions that are playing within the ECC.
Yeah, exactly. And we are doing that dive right now. I just had a meeting yesterday with our budget office, and I have another one scheduled for Monday. And it's looking at all of those things that you mentioned, the staffing, the long-term plans for scholarship, the fundraising, everything that we're going to need to do, and also looking at what the ECC sponsors and where we fit. So we spoke earlier about most of our sports that we currently sponsor are in the ECC, but some of them aren't. So it's taking a look at that, figuring out where that sport fits for our future, and trying to make that determination. And we won't make that in a bubble. We'll get a lot of feedback. It can't just be a dollars and cents decision. It's also got to be a what's right for the College of Staten Island. So I feel really comfortable that we will look at all the factors that are involved, and at the end of the day, make the best decision for the institution.
Great. So I know it's something that not everybody wants to talk about, but let's talk about the doomsday scenario. If CSI should not be given access to Division II, especially right away, where would that leave CSI as far as their standing as a Division III institution, their standing within the CUNY Athletic Conference, and can you shed some light on what it would entail if CSI were denied entry?
So I feel pretty comfortable that I feel confident we're going to get in. Let me say that. But if we weren't to get in this year, I think it would be something it's a part of our future regardless. So we would plan to apply again for next year should we not get in this summer. And we would take the approach that next year we're going to win the CUNY and we're going to do all the things we're supposed to do for all of our sports. That's just the approach that we take. We're going to be competitive in everything that we take on as a department. I think most of our staff, all of our staff, has that same vision that they want to be competitive in everything that we do, and it's going to really kill us when we are in Division II that we can't compete for a few years during that provisional period because we are recruiting student athletes who are competitive and they fit that bill. So we want to always compete, but we'll have to take a little break from that, at least on the championship side, and we're going to try to win our regular seasons as much as we can and show folks in the ECC that we're prepared for this next step.
Yeah, so since you introduced it, it marries perfectly into the next question, which is obviously the goal is to have our application accepted, but that does carry a 3-year provisional window in which CSI would be ineligible for NCAA championships. So do you feel that might force the program to take a step back in a certain way? Give me your realistic outlook on that 3-year provisional period.
So I look at it in a couple ways. The coaching side of me looks and says, man, this stinks. How do I get my kids motivated? How do I recruit student athletes to come here? And I get that. But at the same time, the administrator side of me looks and says, this is a really big leap. So you need that growth time to figure things out. We're learning stuff here every day about the Division II process, about things as simple as travel, and how do you approach travel when you're going to play teams up in Western New York, and with your men's basketball playing on Friday and Sunday, and how are we going to plan for that? How are we going to work our budget? We're going to need to do a lot of fundraising for scholarships scholarships and other resources that we need. So the administrative side of me really sees the necessity for it, as well as an opportunity for the NCAA to evaluate us. There's markers that we need to reach at the end of each year, and I think the NCAA set that up for a reason. It makes a lot of sense because if I'm in the NCAA shoes, I don't want to just allow any school into Division II. I want to make sure that they're prepared to be competitive, and I get that. So while it's very frustrating for our coaches, and I've acknowledged that with them, I think we are all bought in that this is a step that is necessary for us in order to get where we want to get ultimately.
Great. So this move is obviously one that isn't made easily, and it has taken and will continue to take a lot of work by many different people, and you mentioned some of the work that you're doing on campus with other departments. How have you personally prepared your staff in athletics, and namely the coaches, on what this impending move will mean to them? Because Division II doesn't just carry a lot of increased recruiting and compliance responsibilities, but the competition is going to be a whole lot tougher too. So what are you telling some of the coaches in preparation?
It's been interesting because we've had a few meetings with our coaching staff. We actually have an additional one tomorrow, and the meetings have gone from our initial meeting of this is on the table to now we're doing this, and I think all the emotions you would expect to come with that, positive and negative, have definitely come with that. But now we're in a position where it's going to be all about educating our coaches, whether that's about the compliance practices that need to change going forward, whether that's about recruiting philosophy, how we're going to handle scholarships. There's a lot of education we're going to need to do, and that's really justifies that probationary period, or provisional period, I should say, even more so for me. Because as I've looked across the Division II rules, they're so different in a lot of ways that it's going to take us all time, from our compliance officer, from our full-time staff, to our coaches. It's a new world for everybody. So it's going to be all education during the spring and into the summer. Hopefully we get that great decision we're all wanting to hear. And we prepare everything for our first year after provisional. We want to win conference championships. We want to make NCAA Division II tournament appearances. That's where we want to be. So everything that we're going to do is building toward that. And that's the message we're trying to deliver to our entire staff.
Great. So there's obviously a lot that goes into this decision, a lot of work that has been done, a lot of work that still needs to be done, and of course through the provisional period, like you mentioned. But aside from all the work, this has to be really exciting for you personally. Can you kind of step out of your role as an athletic director and talk about just the sheer excitement of being able to lead a division through really a milestone leap in the history of this storied, athletic program, and what that means to you personally?
You know what? It's interesting that you say that, because I don't really look at it that way. I'm excited, but it's not a personal excitement for me. Maybe it is. For me, it's great to see we have a great staff here, and from our administrators to our coaches, and we're always pushing to be better, to be more competitive, and to know that this is something we can put on the horizon as a group. It's really exciting. I think for a long time we've been caught where we are and saying that we want to be better, we want to seek higher challenges, and we've explored other conferences in the past, to be honest, and nothing really matched for us. But I think the more time I've had a chance to look at Division II and the model and the philosophy, it excites me that this really is our fit, and it's a fit for our staff. And I can see our staff getting excited, maybe nervous, but also excited. And they're really looking forward to this. The idea of the unknown is definitely scary, but the fact that we can try to come in and be competitive in something brand new has the entire team here excited.
So, obviously that wraps up my line of questions. I'm sure there are a lot more that a lot of people have out there, but as far as you leaving the people watching this film with something, or with a lasting thought as we go through this process now over the next 4 or 5 months, if there's something that you want to convey to the folks who may be watching this that we didn't cover, what's the lasting thought that you want to leave them with?
The lasting thought I want to leave them with, boy, that's a tough one. I think for me it's the amount of work is going to be rewarded. There's going to be a lot of really difficult times with this transition, with anything. I think there could be positives and negatives, but it's all going to be worth it in the end. I think the reward that waits for us at the end is going to be well worth it. Just the application process, getting through that in such a short period of time for us was daunting, but I think most of our staff is still energized about the next step and the next step. So I can only imagine what that's going to feel like when we're really on the cusp of competing for those conference championships and NCAA D2 tournament appearances. It'll all be validated. I think once we get there, it's all going to be worth it, and I look forward to competing and really changing the culture of everything at the College of Staten Island.
Awesome. Well, Charles, I want to thank you for your time giving us. Congratulations on the move, and good luck the rest of the way. I'm sure we'll have more of these chats soon enough.
Dave. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
CSI Director of Athletics Charles Gomes joining us here on our special presentation, Move to Division II. More coming up. Well, that was a great conversation with CSI Athletic Director Charles Gomes. Let's find out what some of the other CSI staffers are thinking about this potential move. So join us now as we talk to a couple of coaches and some student athletes.
It's super exciting. I think knowing the Division III landscape really, really well, I think we're set up to be really successful at the Division II level. I think from the administration across the board to the student athletes, I think it's exciting to see what we can do next. It's a totally different understanding of rules and how we exist day to day with other offices on campus, how we exist with our student athletes, but I think it's a super positive step because it's going to hold our student athletes and our coaches more accountable to get our student athletes prepared to graduate and move on with their lives. I think it makes us a destination campus. I think it makes us stand out from a lot of schools in the area. I mean, we are a ferry ride from downtown Manhattan. We're a Division II school, and being a Long Island kid, I saw the transformation that Queens went going from D3 to D2, and I think CSI is going to blow up as an academic institution, as an athletic institution. I think the sky's the limit.
I personally believe it is a great move for the school and for the athletics department. It allows us to compete at a higher competition, more challenges for the players and for the coaching staff, and it also allows more variety of players to attend this school since they would like to compete at a higher level. For the future, this would bring the level of play and the level of competition much higher than it already is, and it would only make the school and the community of Staten Island much better.
I think the excitement with the venture of possibly going Division II is, for me personally, I think it's going to bring a lot of excitement within sports for CSI. I think athletics is a huge deal in college campuses, and I think it's just going to make the community as well as more of the regular students come in and be more excited about it. The workload has been a lot, and it's going to continue to be a lot, not necessarily just for the athletic department, but for everyone throughout campus. But I definitely think that the work is going to pay off, and I think this move is definitely what is necessary right now for CSI. I think this move to Division II is going to be, it's going to change more than just the culture of athletics, but the culture of the entire school. I think going Division II is going to make people a lot more happy about athletics, and as well as for the community of Staten Island to get more excited about sports on the island. It's already huge on Staten Island. I think it's going to make it a lot bigger here.
My excitement for Division II is really, really off the charts. I think that, a lot of work is going to be involved with it, but I think what it's going to bring for the borough of Staten Island and for the College of Staten Island is just really going to bring a whole new light to CSI and what we have to offer. Everything just becomes bigger, everything's become more in depth. The recruiting process, everything changes, and I think the amount of work that's going to be put in is, I don't even think we really fathom the amount of work that's going to have to be put in, but it's exciting to get it going and to really bring this program to the next level. I mean, I think with the demographic that we're kind of in and the geographical location, I think that CSI, really the sky's the limit. A lot of success in schools within our area have had at Division II level, and I think us being a public institution, tuition being relatively low, it opens up a whole new door for new types of student athletes, and that's what's most exciting about it.
I'm very excited about the move to Division II because I think it gives us a broader range of student athletes that we can bring into the program, and that will elevate our program to a new level. Both students and athletes, I think we'll get a more diverse population of athletes from different areas, and athletes that can really enhance the way we play and the standards we hold our program to, and put us on the map a little bit more in the Atlantic region and nationally. To make a move like this to Division II, it takes a lot of work, a lot of preparation, a lot of research. Our athletics department, our staff, our athletic directors have done a great job doing all the research to help the coaches kind of get where we need to be and have the knowledge we have to have in order to make this the most successful move we can make it, and make the transition as seamless as possible. Even though it will take a lot of work and a lot of research and a lot of education, I think all the staff here is excited for the move, and that will only drive us to be more knowledgeable in the fields we need to be knowledgeable in. I think this move really changes the way people will look at our program at the College of Staten Island, especially, I know I can speak on definitely Staten Island residents and student athletes and families. I think they're going to look at us in a little bit of a different light and maybe think, even though we've always been competitive, that we're going to be competing at a higher level, and it will definitely have Staten Island student athletes be more interested in our program and give us that initial look, and also off-island student athletes and families. I think we will now be more of a school in their mind when they're making their college choice, and I think it's going to give us more access, and it will make people want to be here and be a part of a program that is the epitome of Staten Island basketball and competing at such a high academic and athletic level.
I think it's going to be a great foundation for not only CSI athletic program, but for the school itself. Moving forward, we have a lot to look forward to academically and sports-wise, and I think that we have really competitive and great teams, and I'm really, really excited, and I think as a whole we deserve to be moving up, so it's going to be exciting. I think long-term, not only just athletically, but academically for this college, it's going to be great overall. It's going to be a lot of competition on the books and on the courts and the fields, but I really think that it's going to be great overall, and it's going to expand CSI and have more eyes on us, and I think it's going to be really exciting to see where we go from it. It's going to be a step up, and I think that being able to change this program from Division III to a step up Division II is really exciting, and it is going to be more to handle, but I definitely think everyone here is capable of doing so.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed our Move to Division II special here at the College of Staten Island. We want to thank CSI President Dr. William J. Fritz, CSI Athletic Director Charles Gomes, and the very many others who took the time today to chat with us about this monumental move in CSI athletics history. Remember that for all things CSI athletics, you can log on to the web at csidolphins.com, and the CSI staff has put together a Move to Division II landing page located at csidolphins.com/move to Division II. There is an FAQ section there that answers a lot of these questions and more, but if you have your own question, you could submit it at the bottom of that page, and a member of the CSI athletics staff will be happy to answer it. Until then, go Dolphins, and we hope you've enjoyed our special Move to Division II.